A very good morning. EURUSD has not really been moving anywhere over the past 2 days due to the fact that today we have both red folder Euro news dropping in around 2 minutes within this video actually, and we have later today CPI, which is consumer inflation numbers, being released as well. Now guys, what are we looking for on EURUSD here? Well, obviously we would love to see some further downside still, as not only here do we have equal lows, but over here we still have a very clear overall liquidity low. Furthermore, the overall internal trend here remains very, very bearish, and therefore there's no case really to be made to look for any further upside on EURUSD unless we see a strong push down candle close here. That would then mean that this high would be the high to break, as the order flow would then be here, buy before sell down, and that would then be your area of supply from where we could then look for more shorts. Or let's say the overall momentum remains bullish, we then break above this overall high, above the previous monthly open. Then we'll look for the retest of what could then be demand zones, liquidity lows, and then we'll look for a potential long position. So these are kind of like the two situations that I'm looking at. To be very honest, I wouldn't be getting into any new EURUSD positions today, obviously based purely on news. No, all you should be doing is just resting in your current existing positions, which are purely based on, hey, we're currently bearish on the immediate order flow. If I look at the 4-hour time frame, we saw a nice retracement in towards the highs here, in towards this liquidity high, in towards the monthly open, and from there we've been pushing down lower and lower. We've left behind equal lows, so therefore it makes sense for EURUSD to push down lower. However, if we do see another retracement in towards the highs, that could be nice manipulation again, and then you can just look for bearish confirmation to look for some further shorts again. But then you need to see the bearish confirmation there, because what if the market just continues pushing up higher, breaks above this high? Then I would switch my bias looking for longs on the monthly open, and then we could potentially trade back up in towards this high. However, I do not really see that happening just yet. But again, markets are completely random and unpredictable, so if that does happen, then that would be what I would be looking for. Now, the news is going to be dropping in around 8 seconds, so let's just stay here on EURUSD and see what happens. Overall, you can just clearly see that we're here at a level of resistance. Market is just consolidating. It's left behind some lows, and we see that Euro has started to push a little bit, but nothing actually really too significant. So obviously we're going to have to wait for today's CPI numbers in the New York session, as that is probably what's really going to be pushing Euro USD out of this current range where it is currently situated within. Now, going into the dollar index, we can see the dollar index is pushing down slightly lower, also consolidating relatively and waiting for those inflation numbers to be released. Overall, from a 4-hour / high time frame perspective, we are still within the impulsive / bullish phase. We can very clearly see here that we saw a push up, push down. This is the retracement, push up, push down, retracement, push up, push down, retracement, this, and then now again we're in the overall impulsive phase. So when you're in the impulsive phase, it doesn't really make sense to look for shorts. And I don't like shorting the market, but what I do like is waiting for better areas of value. And what I can see here on the dollar index is that we've left behind quite a lot of liquidity here and here. So what I'm actually looking for, and what I would love to see, is a dollar push down a little bit lower today, and then, for example, look for further buys in the future. We've taken out this liquidity high here. So in the mediate to short term, for myself, it makes a little bit more sense to see the dollar push down a little bit lower, and hence why I would not be looking to further short EURUSD at the moment until we get some higher prices. And we can see we're currently breaking out a little bit. We've left behind a lot of descending highs here, which I would love to see get taken out as well before looking for any potential further downside. So any push up would just provide us with some new opportunities. Going into GPUSD, we can see that GU is also stalling. Yesterday I mentioned that I would love to see some higher prices on GU still, as I don't trust this area of supply. This remains. I would still like to see further highs after taking out this liquidity low that we had here, which was the first low of all of these ascending lows. Yes, GPUSD is still very, very bearish. I'm still very, very bearish on the pound. I would still like to see further downside. However, if we look at the overall move that we've had this week, it's extremely consolidative and slow, just chopping lower, 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 lower. Hence why I would love to see some higher prices before looking for any further downside at all. I don't really trust this move here, and I would prefer to see a liquidation before seeing any further downside. Furthermore, this is also a relatively strong area of demand, as it liquidated the low here to the left. So hence why I would not be looking to get into any new short positions as of now here on GU. But obviously I'm still bearish on GPUSD as we're still following the overall impulsive phase here in towards the downside. As we had a strong push down, we had the overall pullback phase in towards liquidity. And then from there, we've been selling off again. So now we're currently in the impulsive phase. And what you want to do in the impulsive phase is obviously sell on liquidity highs. So if GPUSD does actually push back up higher, it's only going to provide us with more potential entry possibilities. We've been building up a lot of liquidity actually here on these free highs. So maybe who knows, if we take out some more liquidity next week, we could then look for some new short positions once again. Going into AU, AUD/USD has been performing relatively well. However, still heavily in a consolidation zone, not really moving at all, hence why it's not very interesting. If we see a fake out on the highs, then I'll be looking for a short position here on AUD/USD. Then moving on into NZD/USD. NZD/USD, quite a few of you are in shorts. NZD/USD is nice, very consolidative, obviously still, right? We're still kind of like stuck within this overall range that we have here. We've been ascending corrective overall, and it still makes sense to look for further downside. However, no real momentum just came into the markets after, let's say, reacting to this supply zone. Now, if you are in shorts here, I do always kind of like recommend personally myself to take a little bit of a wider stop loss. Why is that? Because the market is in a range. So what could simply happen is that we just continue to manipulate a bit here until we see for the downside hit maybe a little bit deeper into this supply zone. Hence why, if you then take a sell on this supply zone, don't kind of like use the tightest stop loss possible. No, give it a little bit more breathing room so that it can actually kind of like retrace a bit and then look, for example, for a sell-off. But that's personally what I would do. Looking at it though, it still looks good to sell off a little bit deeper, but it needs to see some, let's say, more risk off sentiment come back into the markets, as the main topics now in the markets are mainly related to the trade deal between China and the US that they're going to be meeting next week. This is currently causing the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar to be relatively strong. Hence why, if you look at, for example, AUD against the yen, you can see that we've seen a significant rally back in towards the highs. And this is also, for example, seen in an NZD/USD, which is now pushing up higher with a weaker dollar throughout this morning. But yeah, still shorts do look good, and we do want to see the overall sentiment continue down lower. I am favoring next week that the deal suddenly collapses between China and the US, and then we just see a beautiful sell-off from this area of supply. But yeah, use a wider stop loss is what I would personally do if I'm getting in here. Then moving on into USDCAD. So USDCAD pushed up higher this morning significantly after it was announced that there was no trade deal anymore between Canada and the US. Trump announced all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated, and this caused significant Canadian dollar weakness this morning and caused the CAD to drop against many other pairs. Hence why USDCAD pushed up higher. We can clearly see here that USDCAD took out significant liquidity here. And after that, we continue pushing up higher. Again, kind of like the impulse up. Within the impulse up, you have a bump in the road here, gets taken out, and now you see it push up. So I'll be looking for some further upside. Obviously, this is kind of like dependent on what inflation does today. So I'll be looking to enter this maybe on kind of like a Monday next week after the inflation numbers come out and the initial, let's say, news push has occurred. Then going into USDJPY, obviously has been pushing up higher within the impulsive zone. I've been talking about this to you guys all week long. These green zones have been on my screen for all week long as well. Impulse retracement takes out the bump in the road. Impulse retracement takes out the bump in the road. And then impulse, and probably going to move towards the yearly open. But yeah, looking only for longs pretty much on USDJPY. And yeah, let's see if we can get some new positions next week. A lot of descending highs still here. With the next major significant high pretty much being this high over here. So still looking for some further upside there on USDJPY in towards next week. We've also seen a bullish daily fractal structure shift here, where this is the sell down before the buy up. So within that demand on next week, we can look for some further longing opportunities. USDCHF looking for further shorts. Obviously, yesterday what happened, we took out internal liquidity over here. So again, we have the impulse in towards the downside. Where do we have bumps in the road? Here. You could consider this one here, here, and here. Reacting to the first one, and now with the Swiss strength, we're seeing some more momentum now, change of character, another change of character here, and I'm looking for this to continue down lower from the monthly open, and this kind of like still acting as a supply zone. So yeah, favoring a USD short position as the Swiss pairs are relatively strong. Also looking at, for example, a CAD Swiss short position as well, after taking out internal liquidity and seeing the 4-hour change of character take place over here. So looking for the downside on that, and then of course gold. What is gold doing? So gold is selling off again a little bit this morning. Yeah, it's kind of like what I mentioned yesterday. It's stuck, guys. It's ranging, so I don't really want to be positioned in any of these kind of pairs. You can see here that you've left the low open and you've left the high open. So what I'm personally going to be doing maybe is looking, hey, can we take out the low and then reverse up higher? Or can we take out the high first and then reverse down lower, for example, after news? That's what I'll be looking at, because for now it's just consolidating, and yeah, it's a very dangerous pair at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a fake out on either the high or the low and then a reversal in the other direction. Seen this happen before. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Wish you all a fantastic trading day. Any questions, as always, just let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section down below or joining the free Discord server. Link is in the description of this video, and I'll see you guys there. Thanks.